When Oblivion launched in 2006, one of its most advertised features was the Radiant AI system. Bethesda promised a world where every NPC would live a full life eating, sleeping, working, and making decisions dynamically. What players discovered, however, was a system filled with quirks, bugs, and obscure details that made Cyrodiil both immersive and unintentionally hilarious. These hidden mechanics remain one of the most fascinating parts of Oblivion, shaping not only the gameplay, but also the myths and stories players still share today. At its core, Radiant AI gave every NPC daily routines. They would wake up in the morning, head to work, visit taverns, buy food, and return home at night. This made Cyrodiil feel alive in a way that previous Elder Scrolls games never had. But beneath the surface, the system was unpredictable. NPCs could steal food from each other if they were hungry, pick fights over small slights, or even die by accident. Bethesda eventually had to scale back the system before release, because in early builds, NPCs would kill one another in brawls over bread, leaving towns half empty. Traces of these chaotic possibilities remain, hidden in the game's quirks. One obscure example lies in how NPCs treat food. If you drop an apple or piece of cheese in front of certain characters, they may pick it up and eat it. This behavior isn't scripted, it's the AI recognizing a free meal. In some cases, stealing food from one NPC and dropping it near another can cause arguments or even violence. It's a tiny mechanic, but it reveals how much the game tried to simulate real life, often with unintended results. Another layer of Radiant AI obscurity comes from conversations. NPCs regularly engage in idle chatter, but many of these conversations are shared across characters, leading to surreal moments. A beggar might suddenly start talking about political strategy, or a noblewoman might casually mention hunting mud crabs. These recycled lines became legendary among players, who quoted, "I saw a mud crab the other day," as one of Oblivion's most iconic phrases. The repetition made conversations feel strange, but it also created a dreamlike rhythm, as if everyone in Cyrodiil shared the same thoughts. The persuasion minigame added another layer of oddity. Each NPC had hidden personality values, how much they liked jokes, admired boasts, or feared intimidation. But the system was so transparent that players could easily game it, creating moments where they would crack jokes with a guard seconds after being arrested. The spinning wheel of persuasion, with its exaggerated facial reactions, became one of Oblivion's most memorable mechanics, equal parts obscure strategy and unintentional comedy. Oblivion's NPC schedules also created obscure gameplay opportunities. Merchants, for example, did not stay in their shops 24/7. Some would leave at night, making it easier to rob their stores. Others would go to bed, allowing players to sneak in and pickpocket them. Guards, too, had routines, sometimes leaving posts unguarded for short periods. These small details rewarded players who observed their surroundings, making the world feel more dynamic, even when it was sometimes broken. Perhaps one of the strangest Radiant AI quirks involves horses. NPCs could borrow horses if their schedule required travel, sometimes stealing mounts from stables. In rare cases, guards would chase after them, creating bizarre scenes where law enforcers chased an NPC across the countryside for horse theft. Horses themselves carried obscure mechanics, such as the fact that only certain breeds could be armored in the Horse Armor DLC, while others could not. Players who experimented with stealing, swapping, or stabling mounts often uncovered strange behaviors that felt half bug, half feature, The most obscure moments often came from accidents. Because every NPC had needs, they could die without the player ever being involved. A character might wander too close to a wolf or bandit and be killed, leaving their quest broken. In one infamous case, a quest-critical NPC could starve to death if their food was stolen too often. Bethesda eventually patched many of these issues, but traces remain, making Oblivion a game where simply existing could change the world in unpredictable ways. Even the city guards, infamous for their all-seeing eyes, were shaped by Radiant AI. They had routines, but their detection system was so unforgiving that stealing a loaf of bread in an empty room could result in guards storming in from across town. Their famous line, "Stop, you violated the law," became a meme because of how sudden and intrusive their justice felt. Yet beneath the humor, the system tracked crimes in detail. Stolen goods carried a stolen tag in the code, making them unusable in crafting or selling until laundered. This obscure mechanic taught players that every item had a history, even if it was just a loaf of bread. Radiant AI also produced hidden kindness. Some NPCs had hidden scripts to help others. A farmer might offer food to a beggar, or a guard might draw their weapon to defend a civilian from wolves. These moments were easy to miss, but created surprising depth. Even if it didn't always work, the illusion of a living world was strengthened by these small touches. In the end, Oblivion's Radiant AI was both revolutionary and ridiculous. Its obscure details created a world that felt alive, even when it spiraled into chaos. NPCs who stole bread, guards who shouted from across town, beggars who spoke of mud crabs, all of it combined into a dreamlike landscape that felt unpredictable and unforgettable. For players drifting through Cyrodiil, the world was not just a stage for quests, but a living organism filled with strange rhythms, hidden mechanics, and obscure stories that unfolded whether they were ready for them or not. When players first heard that Oblivion would take place in Cyrodiil, many expected a lush jungle. Earlier Elder Scrolls lore described the Imperial Province as a steaming rainforest, home to exotic plants and dense wilderness. Instead, Bethesda reimagined Cyrodiil as rolling hills, golden plains, and temperate forests, closer to a European countryside than a jungle. This change was controversial among lore purists, but the in-game explanation is obscure and fascinating. The alteration is attributed to the dragon fires and the metaphysical influence of the Amulet of Kings, which shaped the land to mirror the imperial vision of order. In this way, even the geography becomes a piece of myth. The land itself bends to the will of empire. The imperial city, gleaming white and perched on an island at the center of Lake Rumare, dominates Cyrodiil, both visually and politically. Its design was inspired by Roman and Byzantine architecture, with its central white gold tower echoing stories of ancient Iliad rule. Few players realize that the white gold tower is more than a backdrop. It is the literal anchor between Mundus, the mortal plane, and the divine. Built by the Iliads with Adric power, it holds metaphysical importance, making the imperial city not just a political hub, but the spiritual heart of Tamriel. Each of Cyrodiil's cities reflects a different aspect of imperial culture, yet each holds obscure details. Coral, nestled in the Colovian Highlands, is known for its great oak, a massive tree at its center. Obscure lore suggests this oak was planted by a champion of Kinnereth, blessed to never wither, tying the city's design to divine protection. Shaden Hall, with its canals and Eastern architecture, reflects Dunmer influence from nearby Morrowind, a cultural blending easy to miss unless players pay attention to its structures and names. Bravil, built in the swamps along the Nibene, feels poverty-stricken and run down, yet its statue of Saint Alessia reminds players of the Empire's earliest liberators. These small cultural cues give each city identity beyond its quests. The wilderness of Cyrodiil also hides secrets. Ayleid ruins dot the landscape, remnants of the once great elven rulers who enslaved humans. These ruins glow with Welkind and Varla stones, crystals that still hum with magical energy thousands of years after the Ayleid's fall. Many players rush through these ruins for loot, but obscure inscriptions and architectural designs hint at stories of betrayal, rebellion, and divine pacts. The fact that so many ruins remain active with traps and guardians suggests the Ayleid's power has never truly faded. Cyrodiil's caves and forts are equally mysterious. Some forts were once imperial outposts, now crumbling and overrun by bandits or necromancers. Obscure details in books reveal that many were abandoned during the interregnum, when the Empire fractured. Caves, meanwhile, often contain hidden shrines or strange alchemy ingredients unique to their environments. Players who read journals or inspect minor details often uncover many stories, smugglers' hideouts, failed necromantic rituals, or even hidden cult activity. The natural world also carries obscure facts. Nirnroot, a glowing plant with a distinctive chime, plays a central role in the quest Seeking Your Roots. The plant's properties remain mysterious, with scholars speculating on its ties to Oblivion itself. Its obscurity is reinforced by its rarity. Players can find only a limited number in Cyrodiil, creating a sense of scarcity and mystery. Even the wildlife reflects Cyrodiil's unique identity. Clanfears and scamps spill out of Oblivion gates, their designs distinct from anything in Skyrim or Morrowind. Wolves, deer, and boars roam the forests, creating a believable ecosystem. Yet some creatures are tied directly to quests, such as unicorns, which appear only once and can be claimed as mounts. This single creature, hidden in Harcane Grove, reflects how Oblivion rewards exploration with rare, obscure wonders that most players never see. Cyrodiil is more than the heart of the Empire. It is a land shaped by myth, history, and divine influence. Its cities embody cultural diversity, its ruins whisper of ancient atrocities, and its wilderness hums with secrets waiting to be uncovered. For players who wander off the beaten path, Cyrodiil reveals itself as one of the most obscurely detailed landscapes in the Elder Scrolls, where every stone and tree feels tied to stories older than the Empire itself. At the heart of the Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion lies the Oblivion Crisis, one of the most cataclysmic events in Tamriel's history. When Emperor Uriel Septim VII is assassinated in the game's opening moments, the Amulet of Kings is stolen, breaking the divine covenant that sealed Tamriel from the plains of Oblivion. This allows Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction, to begin tearing open gates across Cyrodiil, spilling demons into the mortal world. The crisis is both epic and obscure, filled with details that most players never fully notice. The Oblivion gates themselves are marvels of design. Each gate serves as a portal to a Daedric realm, a twisted landscape of fire, stone, and jagged towers. Yet each one is slightly different. Some contain hidden loot, others unique layouts, and many hold obscure journals from past adventurers who never returned. The sigil stones at their cores are not just quest items, but artifacts of immense power. Each one can be used to enchant weapons or armor with unique effects, giving the gates a reward that extends beyond the main quest. Martin Septim, the illegitimate son of Uriel, becomes the focal point of the story. His character reflects both hope and tragedy. A priest of Akatosh, Martin initially resists his role, but as the last living heir, he carries the fate of the Empire. His ultimate sacrifice, transforming into the avatar of Akatosh to banish Mehrunes Dagon, is both climactic and ambiguous. Did Martin truly defeat Dagon, or did Akatosh's intervention change the metaphysical rules of Nirn forever? Books written after the crisis suggest that the line between god and mortal blurred, leaving scholars uncertain of what truly happened. Obscure quest details enrich the story. For example, the Blades, sworn protectors of the Septim bloodline, are caught off guard by the Emperor's assassination, raising questions about their vigilance. The Mythic Dawn, the cult responsible, leave hidden books and pamphlets across Cyrodiil, many of which players can miss entirely. These texts, such as commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes, provide deep lore about Dagon's philosophy of destruction as transformation. For lore enthusiasts, they reveal that the crisis was not random chaos, but a deliberate attempt to reshape the world according to Daedric ideals. Even the mechanics of the crisis hold obscure quirks. Oblivion gates open randomly across the map as the main quest progresses, but their locations vary in each playthrough. This randomness means no two players experience the same gates. In some cases, gates may appear near small villages, leading to destruction and NPC deaths if left unchecked. These dynamic outcomes make the crisis feel truly apocalyptic, as if the world itself is unraveling in ways beyond the player's control. The Oblivion crisis is remembered for its spectacle, fiery portals, and towering Daedra, but its obscure details give it depth. The cult's philosophy, the random destruction, the sigil stones, and Martin's divine sacrifice all combine into a story that feels both mythic and mysterious. Even today, the crisis stands as one of the defining moments in Elder Scrolls history, shaping not only Cyrodiil, but the future of the entire series. Of all Oblivion's factions, none are as iconic or as unsettling as the Dark Brotherhood. Players who stumble into the guild often do so by accident, discovering its existence after murdering an innocent NPC. Soon after, they awaken to find Lucien Lachance in their room, offering them a chance to join a secret order of assassins devoted to Sithis, the god of the void. What follows is a questline both infamous and obscure, filled with hidden details that many players never notice. One of the most obscure aspects is how the Dark Brotherhood questline mirrors a story of corruption and collapse. At first, the guild appears powerful and united, with its Shadenhall sanctuary filled with colorful characters like Ochieva, Vicente Valtieri, and the ever-cheerful Khajiit jester, Mike's counterpart, Mirage Dar. Yet, as the questline unfolds, the Brotherhood is betrayed from within. The purification ritual, ordered by Lachance, requires the player to slaughter the entire sanctuary, wiping out their newfound family. Many players are shocked by this twist, but obscure dialogue foreshadows it. If you listen closely, NPCs hint at cracks in their loyalty, with some questioning Lachance's leadership. Another obscure detail lies in Lachance himself. His voice, performed with a calm menace, masks his eventual fate. The Black Hand, the Brotherhood's leadership, turns on him, branding him a traitor. His eventual death, strung up as a warning, is one of the most chilling moments in the game, yet players can still find his ghost later in the questline, a spectral companion who guides them toward vengeance. Few players realize that his presence is not just supernatural flair, it reflects the Brotherhood's belief that those who serve Sithis never truly die, but become whispers in the void. The quests themselves are full of hidden gems. The mission, Who Done It, in Skingrad's Summit Mist Manor is one of the most beloved in the series. The player is tasked with murdering every guest at a party without being caught. Obscurely, each guest has unique dialogue, suspicions, and relationships. Killing them in certain orders triggers different reactions, creating dozens of variations. Some players complete the mission through brute force, but others take pleasure in sowing paranoia, watching as the guests turn on each other before delivering the final blow. It is a masterclass in emergent storytelling, and its depth is easily overlooked. The rewards of the Dark Brotherhood are equally fascinating. The Black Hand Robes and the Blade of Woe carry unique enchantments, but the Dark Brotherhood's rewards in Oblivion stop there. The idea of summoning Lucian as a spectral assassin is actually from Skyrim, where his spirit can fight alongside the player. His dialogue is haunting, filled with reflections on his betrayal and death. This mechanic, easily missed if players do not complete the questline thoroughly, ensures that LeChance remains a ghostly presence throughout the rest of the game. The Dark Brotherhood also ties into Oblivion's broader lore. Sithis, their patron, is not a Daedric prince but a primordial force representing chaos and nothingness. The Brotherhood's devotion reflects Tamriel's darker philosophies that death itself is sacred and that the void is the truest form of worship. For players who read the in-game texts, the Brotherhood is not just a guild of killers, but a religious order with its own mythology, echoing real-world themes of fanaticism and corruption. Ultimately, the Dark Brotherhood questline is remembered for its twists and atmosphere, but its obscure details, the foreshadowing, the branching outcomes, the hidden rewards, make it one of Oblivion's richest experiences. It is both tragedy and power fantasy, a story where the player becomes executioner, betrayer, and eventually listener of the Night Mother herself. In contrast to the Dark Brotherhood's violence, the Thieves Guild offers a quieter, subtler journey, yet it too is filled with obscure details, from its methods of recruitment to the ultimate revelation of its leader's identity. Unlike in Skyrim, where the guild is found openly in Riften, Oblivion hides its Thieves Guild in the shadows of the Imperial City, making its discovery part of the mystery. Joining the guild requires committing crimes. The beggars of the city, often dismissed as background characters, are in fact the guild's eyes and ears. Only by speaking to them can players learn about Armand Christophe, the guild's recruiter. Obscurely, the beggars themselves form a network that extends across Cyrodiil, with each city's beggars offering information and rumors for a small donation. This mechanic, overlooked by many, reflects how the guild thrives, not through brute force, but through knowledge. The guild's quests revolve around stealth, deception, and cleverness. Players are sent to steal heirlooms, infiltrate noble estates, and recover artifacts. Yet the most obscure and fascinating detail lies in the guild's leader, the Grey Fox. At first, he is a legend, a thief whose identity is unknown. Only later is it revealed that the Grey Fox is not a single person, but an identity passed down through generations, tied to the cowl of Nocturnal. Whoever wears the cowl becomes the Grey Fox, erased from all records and memories. Even their family forgets who they were. This revelation transforms the guild's story into one of sacrifice. The leader must give up their very identity for the good of the guild. The final quest, the ultimate heist, is among Oblivion's grandest. Players must infiltrate the Imperial Palace itself, stealing an Elder Scroll from beneath the noses of the Empire's guards. The quest combines everything the guild stands for: stealth, patience, and ingenuity. Obscure details in the palace reveal hidden passages, secret guards' routines, and magical wards that require precise planning to bypass. It is not just a heist, but a symbolic act, a thief stealing from the heart of imperial power, defying the very foundations of authority. Rewards from the guild reflect its philosophy. The Grey Cowl of Nocturnal grants immense power, including the ability to become the Grey Fox, but it also erases the player's identity, making all guards hostile on sight. This trade-off embodies the balance of power and sacrifice, a theme central to Oblivion's storytelling. Many players never fully grasp the implications. The guild leader lives a life of anonymity, remembered only as a myth. Obscure touches enrich the guild further. For example, some quests offer multiple solutions, rewarding creativity. A mission to recover a stolen ring can be completed by framing someone else, changing the outcome entirely. The beggar's dialogue shifts as the player rises in the guild, reflecting newfound respect. Even guards sometimes comment on rumors of the Grey Fox, hinting at the guild's growing influence. These small details make the questline feel dynamic, alive with possibility. The Thieves' Guild stands as one of Oblivion's most rewarding experiences, not because of loot or titles, but because it transforms the player into a legend. By the end, the Dragonborn of Skyrim may be remembered for slaying dragons, but the champion of Cyrodiil in Oblivion may be remembered for stealing an Elder Scroll from under the Empire's nose. The obscure details, the beggar's network, the identity-erasing cowl, the multiple paths to success, make the Thieves' Guild one of the most intricately designed factions in the series. The Fighters' Guild in Oblivion represents tradition, order, and mercenary discipline, yet beneath its simple surface lies one of the most obscure and morally complex storylines in the game. At first glance, the guild seems straightforward, a group of warriors who take contracts to defend towns, slay beasts, and uphold honor. But as the player rises through its ranks, a darker truth emerges, one tied to corruption, drugs, and betrayal. The guild's greatest rival is the Blackwood Company, a mercenary group operating out of Leowyn. Unlike the Fighters' Guild, they care little for honor or restraint. They take any contract, no matter how brutal, and their methods rely on hist sap, a hallucinogenic extract from the sacred hist trees of the Argonians. The use of this sap makes them both more powerful and more dangerous, creating an organization that wins contracts through ruthlessness. Few players realize that this storyline is a commentary on exploitation and addiction. The Hist, revered by Argonians as sacred, are reduced to a weapon in the hands of mercenaries who care nothing for their culture. The most obscure and chilling moment comes during the quest Infiltration, where the player is forced to drink hist sap as part of an initiation. Under its influence, they believe they are fighting goblins in a raid, only to awaken and discover they have slaughtered innocent villagers. This sequence is one of Oblivion's most haunting, showing how perspective and manipulation can twist morality. Many players remember it vividly, but few notice that the villagers' names and stories are hinted at earlier in the game, making the massacre all the more tragic. The Fighters Guild questline is not just about defeating the Blackwood Company, but about restoring honor to an institution on the brink of collapse. Velena Daunton, the guild's leader, resists ruthless methods, while Modron Orion pushes for more aggressive tactics. The player's rise through the ranks reflects this tension, balancing between restraint and necessary violence. The eventual destruction of the Blackwood Company feels like justice, but the moral scars remain. Obscure details add depth. The Blackwood Company's headquarters in Leyawiin contains vats of hissed sap and journals describing their descent into cruelty. Reading these texts reveals that even some members doubted their path, but were trapped by addiction and ambition. NPC dialogue throughout Cyrodiil changes after the guild's downfall, with townsfolk commenting on the end of the company. These subtle touches make the questline feel impactful, as if the player's actions truly reshaped mercenary life in Cyrodiil. The Fighters Guild may lack the glamour of the Dark Brotherhood or the mystery of the Mages Guild, but its obscure moral dilemmas make it one of Oblivion's most grounded and powerful stories. It asks players to consider what honor means and whether victory is worth the cost of humanity. If the Fighters Guild is about honor, the Mages Guild is about knowledge and the dangers that come with it. The Mages Guild questline in Oblivion is filled with obscure lore, rival factions, and questions about the pursuit of power. What begins as a simple journey to earn recommendations from guild halls soon spirals into a battle against necromancy, corruption, and ambition. To join the guild fully, players must earn recommendations from each guild hall across Cyrodiil. These quests are deceptively simple: recover a staff, solve a dispute, help a struggling apprentice, yet they reveal the fragmented state of the guild. Each hall has its own politics, its own quirks, and obscurely, its own connection to larger magical traditions. For instance, the Breville Hall's focus on illusion magic ties to the city's reputation for mysticism, while the Chorrel Hall emphasizes alchemy and practical magic. These small distinctions flesh out the guild as more than a monolith. The main conflict of the guild centers on necromancy. Archmage Hannibal Traven has banned the practice, creating tension with mages who see it as a legitimate form of study. His hardline stance pushes many members away, fueling the rise of the rival group led by Mannimarco, the King of Worms. Mannimarco is one of the most obscure and legendary figures in Elder Scrolls lore. Believed to be immortal, he has appeared in multiple games, always tied to necromancy. His presence in Oblivion ties the game directly to a lineage of evil stretching back centuries. The questline gradually reveals the cost of Traven's decisions. His refusal to tolerate necromancy weakens the guild, making it vulnerable to Mannimarco's attacks. Members are slaughtered, guild halls raided, and apprentices sacrificed. The tension builds until the final confrontation, where the player faces Mannimarco himself. Strangely, for all his reputation, the battle is anticlimactic. He appears as a standard necromancer with little unique power. This disappointment is itself an obscure detail, widely discussed by fans who speculate that Bethesda scaled him down to avoid breaking the game's balance. Some even argue that the Mannimarco in Oblivion is not the true King of Worms, but a shadow or echo explaining his weakness. Traven's final act is one of sacrifice. Knowing he cannot defeat Mannimarco, he transforms his own soul into the colossal Black Soul Gem, offering it to the player as a weapon. This obscure twist gives the player a chance to defeat the necromancer, but at the cost of the guild's leader. Traven's death leaves a power vacuum, one that the player fills by becoming Archmage. The guild survives, but at great cost. Obscure details enrich the storyline further. Some guild halls contain hidden bookshelves with rare texts on magical theory. NPCs make offhand comments about past experiments gone wrong, hinting at the dangers of unchecked study. Even the architecture of the Arcane University, with its towers and wards, reflects a fortress mentality. Magic is both a tool and a threat, and must be guarded closely. The Mages Guild questline is remembered for its tension and tragedy, but its obscure details, the fragmented halls, the weak final battle, the hidden lore, make it one of Oblivion's most layered stories. It asks players to consider whether banning dangerous knowledge truly protects the world, or whether it leaves the guild weaker in the face of enemies who have no such restraints. The Imperial City's arena is one of Oblivion's most iconic features, yet its depths are often overlooked. Players who walk through the market district may hear crowds cheering in the distance, their roars echoing from the great stone Colosseum. Inside, the arena offers a brutal but thrilling storyline where combat becomes spectacle and fame is bought with blood. What makes the arena special, though, are its obscure details, the hidden dialogue, the undercurrents of corruption, and the strange characters who bring it to life. To begin, the player must speak to Owen, the gruff blade master who trains all gladiators. His constant insults mask a deep commitment to the fighters under his watch. Owen is one of Oblivion's most memorable NPCs because of his colorful dialogue, but obscurely, some of his lines reference cut features from early builds of the game. He mentions rules and ranks that do not exist in the final version, suggesting Bethesda had originally planned for a deeper arena system. These fragments hint at an even more ambitious design that never made it to release. The arena's structure is simple but effective. Players start as a lowly pit dog and rise through ranks to become the grand champion. Along the way, they face gladiators with unique personalities and fighting styles. Some opponents are easy, others brutal, but all carry obscure touches. One warrior, for example, prays before battle, while another makes arrogant boasts that change depending on whether they win or lose. These small details, often missed if players skip dialogue, make the arena feel more alive than just a series of fights. The blue team and yellow team rivalry adds flavor, though the player never truly joins one side. This oddity has long been debated by fans. Why introduce two teams if the player is only a participant? The obscure answer lies in the arena's design philosophy. Bethesda wanted to create the illusion of a larger gladiatorial culture, even if the mechanics remained focused on the player's journey. The unseen fights, the offhand comments about rivalries, and the ambient sounds of cheering all build this illusion. The Grand Champion, Agronak Gromalog, offers one of Oblivion's most obscure quest lines. Known as the Grey Prince, Agronak is beloved by the crowd for his skill and honor. Yet if the player investigates his past, they discover a dark truth. He is the son of an orc and a vampire, his bloodline cursed. Confronted with this revelation, Agronak loses his will to fight, begging the player to kill him in the arena. This optional quest transforms the climactic battle into a tragedy, turning the Grand Champion's glory into despair. Many players never uncover this backstory, making it one of Oblivion's most obscure gems. Even after becoming Grand Champion, the arena hides secrets. Fans in the stands shout different phrases depending on the player's actions, sometimes heckling, sometimes cheering. The adoring fan, a wood elf with boundless enthusiasm, approaches the player outside and offers to follow them everywhere. His constant chatter is amusing to some, infuriating to others, but his persistence is unmatched. Obscurely, if the player kills him, he respawns after 3 days, resurrected by Bethesda's scripting to ensure his comic presence can never be truly silenced. The arena also reflects Cyrodiil's politics. While the Empire projects order and law, it still thrives on blood sport, entertaining its citizens with gladiators' deaths. The arena is both entertainment and control, a reminder that even in a civilized empire, violence is celebrated. This duality, rarely discussed in dialogue, makes the arena more than just a side activity. It is a mirror of Tamriel's contradictions: law and chaos, honor and bloodshed, spectacle and tragedy. For those who linger, the arena reveals itself as one of Oblivion's most layered features. Beneath the cheers lies despair, beneath the glory lies corruption, and beneath the grand champion's crown lies a curse. It is not just a place for combat, but a stage where the obscure truths of Cyrodiil play out in front of roaring crowds. If the arena embodies mortal glory, the Daedric quests embody divine extremes. Oblivion is filled with shrines to the Daedric princes, scattered across forests, mountains, and hidden corners of Cyrodiil. Each shrine offers a unique quest, often requiring obscure offerings or conditions to begin. These quests are some of the strangest, darkest, and most fascinating in the game, offering players a glimpse into the minds of Tamriel's most alien gods. Sheogorath, the Prince of Madness, delivers his Cyrodiil shrine quest called the Kashara Prophecy, where he tasks the player with bringing about bizarre omens in the town of Borderwatch, plagues of rats, raining cheese, and fiery doom. His reward is the Wabbajack, a staff that transforms creatures into random forms. The Fork of Horripilation, often associated with Sheogorath, actually appears later in the Shivering Isles expansion as part of a separate quest for Big Head. The quest is humorous on the surface, but obscurely, it reflects Sheogorath's philosophy that madness is not chaos alone, but finding meaning in absurdity. The fork itself becomes an artifact, a joke that is also deadly serious. In the main quest, Blood of the Daedra, Martin Septim asks the player to bring him any Daedric artifact to sacrifice. This is one of the most memorable steps in Oblivion's story, since players must willingly give up a powerful item for the sake of saving Tamriel. His quest rewards the Mehrunes' Razor, a dagger with a chance to instantly kill enemies. Obscurely, the Razor has appeared in multiple Elder Scrolls titles, always tied to assassination and destruction. Its presence in Oblivion ties the game's Daedric quests to a broader tradition across the series. Molag Bal, the Prince of Domination, offers one of the darkest quests. He commands the player to corrupt a paladin, forcing them to commit murder in the name of cruelty. The quest explores themes of power and corruption, with no happy ending. Namira, the Lady of Decay, requires the player to embrace cannibalism, offering her ring as a reward. These quests are obscure not only for their disturbing themes, but for their hidden variations. Different dialogue options can alter how the quests unfold, though the outcomes are always grim. Azura, by contrast, offers a gentler path. Her quest involves freeing souls trapped by necromancy, and her reward, Azura's Star, becomes one of the most useful artifacts in the game. The choice to corrupt it into the Black Star, added in Skyrim, shows how Oblivion's Daedric quests laid the foundation for moral dilemmas that would echo in later games. Some shrines are obscure in how they appear. Periite's shrine, for instance, often lies empty, with worshippers frozen in trance. Speaking to Periite reveals that their souls are trapped in oblivion, and the player must retrieve them. The eerie stillness of the shrine, filled with motionless bodies, is one of the most unsettling sights in the game. Hermaeus Mora's quest is equally obscure, requiring the completion of every other Daedric quest before it can be started. This requirement makes it one of the last quests most players see, rewarding them with the Ogma Infinium, a book of infinite knowledge. The Daedric quests reveal Tamriel's gods not as benevolent overseers, but as beings of extremes. Their demands are bizarre, cruel, or inspiring, but always alien. Each quest is a puzzle, forcing players to weigh morality against reward. Obscure details, unique dialogue, strange conditions, hidden references make them some of Oblivion's most memorable stories. Together, they remind players that the Daedra are not side characters, but central forces in the Elder Scrolls universe, shaping the world in ways both subtle and catastrophic. When the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion released its Shivering Isles expansion in 2007, players were given a ticket into the mind of Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. Unlike other expansions that added new quests or items, this one created an entirely new world, a realm split between mania and dementia, where madness itself shaped the land. The Shivering Isles remain one of the strangest and most obscure corners of Elder Scrolls lore, overflowing with hidden details that make it feel like a fever dream come to life. The realm is divided into two halves. Mania is a riot of color filled with golden forests, oversized fungi, and glowing lakes. Dementia is its opposite, a land of dark swamps, twisted roots, and shadowed fortresses. Each side reflects a different kind of madness. Mania embodies obsession, euphoria, and creativity, while dementia reflects paranoia, depression, and fear. This split is not only visual but mechanical. NPCs behave differently depending on which side they inhabit, with manic citizens prone to wild enthusiasm and demented citizens prone to distrust and despair. Sheogorath himself is unforgettable, voiced with manic brilliance by Wes Johnson. His dialogue veers between humor and menace, often in the same sentence. Yet obscurely, Sheogorath's story in Shivering Isles hides one of the greatest twists in Elder Scrolls history. The player learns that Jiggalag, the Daedric Prince of Order, was cursed by the other Daedra to become Sheogorath, the embodiment of chaos. Every era, he breaks free during the Grey March, destroying his own realm before being cursed again. The player's role is to break this cycle, defeating Jiggalag and becoming Sheogorath themselves. This revelation transforms the expansion from comedy into tragedy. Sheogorath is not merely mad, but cursed by divine politics. The quests in the Isles are just as bizarre. One task involves convincing a paranoid man that assassins are after him, either feeding his delusions or proving him wrong. Another asks the player to choose a duke or duchess to assassinate, reshaping the politics of the realm. Obscure choices abound. Siding with mania or dementia alters not just quests but the realm's atmosphere. The Isles reflect the player's decisions, showing how madness is not fixed but fluid, shaped by power and perspective. Artifacts reward the player with equally strange powers. The Wabbajack, Sheogorath's signature staff, transforms enemies into random creatures, turning a deadly foe into a harmless rat, or vice versa. The Fork of Horripilation returns here, a joke weapon with real bite. Obscurely, some artifacts shift, depending on whether the player aligns with mania or dementia, giving the expansion replayability that many miss. Hidden details make the Isles even richer. Statues of Sheogorath whisper lines when approached, muttering half-coherent phrases that hint at his true identity as Jiggalag. Books scattered throughout the realm describe events that seem nonsensical at first, but careful reading reveals they are allegories for Tamriel's own history. Even the flora is obscure. Plants like Screaming Maw or Feldew carry strange alchemical properties, rewarding experimentation. The Shivering Isles is remembered as one of the best expansions in RPG history, not because of loot or mechanics, but because it dared to explore madness as a theme. Its obscure details, whispered statues, cursed cycles, branching choices make it feel like a self-contained myth. For players who venture beyond Cyrodiil's borders, the Isles are not just a playground of insanity, but a mirror of the Elder Scrolls' deepest truth, that gods are not just divine, but flawed, cursed, and trapped in their own cycles of chaos. Released as one of Oblivion's story-driven DLCs, Knights of the Nine introduced a new faction centered on divine justice, holy relics, and the legacy of Crusaders. While less flamboyant than Shivering Isles, it is filled with obscure lore and details that connect deeply to the mythic history of Tamriel. At its heart, the expansion is about redemption, both for the player and for an ancient order that fell into disgrace. The story begins with Umaril the Unfeathered, an ancient Ayleid sorcerer king who once ruled with cruelty. Defeated in the past by Pelinal Whitestrake, Umaril returns during Oblivion's events, empowered by Daedric pacts. The player must gather the relics of the Divine Crusader, sacred artifacts once worn by Pelinal, to face Umaril once again. Each relic helm, cuirass, gauntlets, greaves, boots, mace, and shield carries unique powers and is tied to quests of purification. Obscurely, the relics cannot be simply looted. They require trials that test the player's faith, courage, and morality. One of the most fascinating aspects of the DLC is how it ties into Ayleid history. Umaril represents the lingering grudge of the elves who once enslaved humanity, his pact with Meridia granting him immortality. Meridia, often portrayed as benevolent in later games, appears here as an ally to Umaril, highlighting her hatred of mortals and her obsession with cleansing undeath. This portrayal makes Knights of the Nine one of the few times where Meridia's role feels ambiguous, a reminder that even the good Daedra can stand against humanity. The pilgrimage mechanic adds further obscurity. To begin the questline, players must visit shrines of the Nine Divines scattered across Cyrodiil, repenting for any crimes. Infamy prevents progress, meaning murderers and thieves must atone before becoming a crusader. This mechanic ties morality directly into gameplay, making it one of the rare times when Oblivion's fame, infamy system impacts a major quest. Few players realize that donating gold to temples or performing good deeds can cleanse infamy, adding a hidden layer of roleplay. The Knights of the Nine themselves form a new order around the player. Each knight has their own backstory, often tied to redemption. Some are fallen mercenaries, others priests or warriors seeking forgiveness. Their obscure dialogue reveals deep personal struggles, reflecting the DLC's central theme that no one is beyond redemption. Together, they create a band of diverse companions, though many players overlook their conversations in their rush to face Umaril. The final battle takes place not just in Mundus, but in the spirit realm. Umaril must be fought in both planes, reflecting his unnatural bond with Meridia. Only with the Crusader's relics can the player fully defeat him, ending his reign forever. Obscurely, if the player does not wear the relics, they can still defeat Umaril, but at a greater cost. The game acknowledges this choice, altering dialogue and outcomes. The DLC ends with the player as the new Divine Crusader, wearing relics that symbolize purity and justice. Yet even here, obscure details linger. The relics lose their power if the player commits crimes afterward, a subtle mechanic that reinforces the theme of morality. Many players are surprised when their powerful armor suddenly weakens after theft or murder, a hidden punishment for betraying the Order's ideals. Knights of the Nine may not be as flamboyant as Shivering Isles, but its obscure details, Umaril's ties to Meridia, the morality of the relics, the redemption arcs of the knights make it one of Oblivion's most meaningful stories. It connects the game not just to Cyrodiil's politics, but to Tamriel's ancient past, weaving together the Divines, Ayleids, and Daedric conflicts into a single tale of faith and redemption. All across Cyrodiil, half buried in forests, swamps, and hills, stand the crumbling remnants of the Ayleids, the so-called Heartland High Elves, who once ruled Tamriel. Their white stone ruins, glowing with the eerie light of Welkind and Varla stones, are among Oblivion's most atmospheric dungeons. Yet beneath their beauty lies a history of cruelty, rebellion, and divine intervention that players only glimpse through obscure fragments of lore. The Ayleids enslaved the Nedic humans of Cyrodiil for centuries, using both sorcery and Daedric bargains to maintain power. Their cities were described in legends as dazzling marvels of white stone lit by everlasting crystals. But these wonders hid brutal practices. Humans were sacrificed to Daedric princes, especially to Molag Bal and Mehrunes Dagon, and the Ayleid's dominion thrived on torment. The Alessian rebellion, led by Saint Alessia, brought this empire crashing down, aided by Pelinal Whitestrake, a half-divine champion whose wrath left entire Ayleid cities drenched in blood. By the time of Oblivion, the Ayleids were long gone, but their ruins remained as ghostly reminders. Inside these ruins, players encounter Welkind and Varla stones, glowing crystals that serve both as magical light sources and powerful enchantment items. Welkind stones restore magicka when consumed, while Varla stones recharge all enchanted items in the player's inventory. Their rarity makes them highly valuable, but obscurely, they also serve as remnants of the Ayleid's mastery over starborn magicka. Lore suggests they were fragments of Aetherius itself, harvested to power cities and spells. This connects them to the stars and constellations, a subtle link to the cosmic order that underlies Elder Scrolls magic. Many ruins are guarded not only by undead, but by strange constructs. Ayleid guardians, statues animated by lingering magics, suggest that the elves' sorcery still lingers centuries after their fall. Some ruins feature puzzles involving light beams and crystal switches, obscured mechanisms that hint at a once sophisticated civilization. For players willing to linger, these dungeons tell stories not just through combat, but through architecture, graceful arches, hidden reliquaries, and shattered thrones that whisper of a time when elves ruled the Heartland. Obscure quests tie directly to Ayleid history. In Secrets of the Ayleids, players recover ancient texts that hint at their Daedric alliances. The quest Lost Histories reveals how some Ayleid lords betrayed their kin to survive the rebellion, striking pacts with Alessia. Even Martin Septim, during the main quest, studies an Ayleid artifact called the Mysterium Xarxes, written by Mankar Camoran, who claimed descent from Ayleid nobility. This connection between the Oblivion Crisis and the elves of old suggests that their shadow still stretches across Tamriel's history. One of the most obscure touches is purely visual. Many ruins contain faint traces of glass mosaics, decorative carvings, or inscriptions in Ayleidun, the elves' language. Most players rush past them, but for those who pause, they reinforce the idea that these were once living cities, not just dungeons. Fan translations of Ayleidun inscriptions even reveal phrases praising Daedric princes, confirming the elves' reliance on dark pacts. The Ayleid ruins are beautiful, but their beauty is haunted. Every glowing stone is a fragment of a cruel empire, every undead guardian a reminder of rebellion and ruin. For players who take time to read, listen, and explore, these ruins transform from random dungeons into echoes of a forgotten world, one whose shadow still shapes Cyrodiil in ways most never realize. If Oblivion is remembered for its lore and quests, it is equally remembered for its quirks, the bugs, glitches, and strange AI behaviors that turned the game into a world of unpredictable comedy. Far from ruining the experience, these oddities became part of the game's charm, giving it a dreamlike quality where the line between intended design and accident blurred. Many of these quirks remain obscure, discovered only by players who push the game's systems to their limits. One of the most infamous quirks involves the game's physics engine. Objects in Oblivion respond to havoc physics, which means they bounce, roll, and tumble in exaggerated ways. Dropping hundreds of paintbrushes could create floating staircases because brushes in Oblivion oddly ignore gravity. Players exploited this to reach rooftops, towers, or even create makeshift bridges across the landscape. Bethesda never patched this fully, leaving it as a beloved tool of creative chaos. NPCs, powered by the Radiant AI, often behaved in ways the developers never intended. Guards became legendary for their omniscience, able to detect crimes even if the player thought no one was watching. "Stop right there, criminal scum," became an internet meme quoted endlessly because of how abruptly guards would appear. Yet even this system had obscure logic. Guards tracked ownership values for every item, meaning even food carried a hidden tag. Taking a loaf of bread flagged it as stolen forever, even if dropped later. The persuasion minigame, designed to simulate flattery and intimidation, often created surreal moments. NPCs' facial animations exaggerated their emotions to absurd levels, turning a simple joke into a grotesque grimace. Obscurely, some NPCs had mismatched personality values, leading to strange results. One might claim to hate jokes, but gain huge disposition boosts when you tell them. These quirks made conversations unpredictable, sometimes hilarious, and cemented Oblivion's reputation as unintentionally comedic. Quests were not immune to chaos. In Who Done It, the Dark Brotherhood murder mystery, NPCs could accidentally kill each other before the player intervened, ruining carefully laid plans. Escort quests sometimes went awry when companions wandered into hazards, triggering fights they weren't meant to survive. Even main quest moments could break. Martin's septum could be killed if not protected, soft-locking progress. Bethesda eventually patched some of these issues, but the game's fragility became part of its myth. Obscure glitches became legendary. Speedrunners discovered ways to duplicate items, skip quest triggers, and travel out of bounds. The scroll duplication glitch, where stacking scrolls allowed infinite copies of items, became infamous among players looking to amass fortunes. Another glitch let players equip multiple enchanted rings at once, stacking effects far beyond what the developers intended. These exploits blurred the line between cheat and creativity, giving Oblivion an underground culture of glitch experimentation. The Adoring Fan, a wood elf who follows the grand champion of the arena, became a target of player mischief. His immortal respawn script meant no matter how many times he was pushed off cliffs or sacrificed to Daedra, he always returned. This obscure scripting quirk made him both annoying and beloved, a symbol of Oblivion's strange balance between comedy and tragedy. Even the landscape itself held oddities. Floating rocks, misplaced textures, and NPCs spawning underground created surreal encounters. Some players found entire villages wiped out because NPCs wandered into combat with wild creatures. Others discovered horses that could climb mountains vertically, defying physics entirely. These bugs, while frustrating at times, gave the game a mythic unpredictability, as if Cyrodiil itself resisted order. What makes these glitches so beloved is how they added to Oblivion's identity. Rather than breaking immersion, they reinforce the sense of a living dream, unpredictable, surreal, and often hilarious. In many ways, the glitches became as iconic as the lore. They turned the game into something communal, with players sharing strange stories of physics explosions, misplaced NPCs, and immortal fans. For those drifting into sleep, these tales remind us that even the flaws of a world can make it more magical. While Oblivion is often remembered for its quests, factions, and Daedric portals, one of its most lasting achievements is its atmosphere. The music, ambient sounds, and subtle design choices created a dreamlike quality that lingered with players long after they set down the controller. At the heart of this experience was composer Jeremy Soule, whose score gave Cyrodiil its voice and a wealth of obscure touches that many never consciously noticed but always felt. The main theme of Oblivion, known as Reign of the Septums, begins with a powerful horn section that swells into strings, echoing the grandeur of the Empire at its height. Obscurely, Soule structured this piece as both a march and a lament, reflecting how the game begins with the assassination of Uriel Septim and the decline of the dynasty. Players may feel inspired by the theme, but its underlying notes carry melancholy, a foreshadowing of the Empire's collapse. Each region of Cyrodiil has its own musical palette. In the Gold Coast, gentle flutes and harps give a Mediterranean warmth. In the Colovian Highlands, strings and brass evoke rugged hills. In Blackwood, darker tones and low percussion reflect swamps and shadow. Many players never consciously notice how the soundtrack shifts as they travel, but these regional variations ensure that exploration feels fresh and immersive. Nighttime music in Oblivion carries its own magic. Soft piano and strings drift through the forests, creating a sense of mystery and calm. Obscurely, Soule designed these tracks to play more frequently at night than during the day, ensuring that moments of solitude carried their own atmosphere. Combined with the sounds of crickets, owls, and distant wolves, nighttime in Oblivion feels like stepping into a lullaby, dangerous yet strangely soothing. The dungeons of Cyrodiil carry their own soundscapes, echoing drips, faint wind, and low tones create an ominous atmosphere. Ayleid ruins hum with magical resonance, their crystals emitting faint chimes. Oblivion gates scream with fire and demonic roars, contrasted by the chilling silence of Daedric towers. Many players may not realize that Bethesda layered multiple soundtracks in dungeons, blending ambient noises with music to create tension. This subtle layering means that even when the music seems absent, sound design is still working in the background to heighten unease. Voices also play a role in Oblivion's atmosphere, even when mocked for repetition. The reuse of actors like Wes Johnson, who voiced guards, Sheogorath, and many others, created a sense of surreal familiarity. Hearing the same voice across dozens of characters gave the game an almost dreamlike consistency. Obscurely, Johnson improvised some of Sheogorath's lines, meaning that the Prince of Madness himself was shaped by unscripted creativity. The Imperial City, at the center of Cyrodiil, is filled with sound cues that reinforce its grandeur. The clinking of armor as guards patrol, the chatter of merchants, and the tolling of bells all create a living hub. Even here, obscure touches emerge. Street performers play lutes in some districts, though many players never stop to listen. Ambient crowd noises, layered into the market district, create the illusion of bustling life, even when only a few NPCs are present. Even Oblivion's silence is deliberate. In the wilderness, long stretches pass with no music, only the sound of wind in the trees or water flowing in rivers. This design choice was intentional. Soul wanted players to feel the world breathe between tracks. The result is that when music returns, it feels more meaningful, like a commentary on the player's journey rather than constant background noise. The atmosphere of Oblivion is often remembered as dreamlike, and that is no accident. The music, sound effects, and subtle design combine to create a sense of timelessness. For players drifting into sleep, these elements linger, turning Cyrodiil into a world not just seen or played, but felt. Its obscure touches, improvised lines, layered ambient sounds, regional variations ensure that Oblivion's atmosphere remains one of the most immersive experiences in gaming history. Oblivion was released in 2006, but its legacy continues to ripple across the Elder Scrolls series and gaming as a whole. Its systems, design choices, and even its flaws shape the future of Bethesda's games, while its obscure cut content and unfinished ideas hint at paths never taken. To understand Oblivion fully is to see it not just as a game, but as a bridge between eras, a dream of what RPGs could be, both fulfilled and left incomplete. One of Oblivion's greatest legacies is its radiant AI. Though flawed and often mocked, it was revolutionary, inspiring Skyrim's radiant story system and the dynamic worlds of countless RPGs afterward. Its obscure quirks, NPCs stealing food, guards knowing impossible crimes, became part of gaming culture. Without Oblivion's experiments, Skyrim's living world would never have reached the same level of immersion. Its guild questlines also set a new standard. The Dark Brotherhood's betrayals, the Thieves Guild's ultimate heist, and the Fighters Guild's moral compromises are still cited as some of the best faction stories in RPG history. Skyrim's guilds drew heavily from these models, but few matched Oblivion's depth. Obscurely, developer interviews revealed that many guild questlines were written as miniature games within the game, each intended to stand alone as a full story arc. Cut content offers a window into what might have been. Early builds of Oblivion included more advanced AI behaviors, such as NPCs pursuing long-term goals or managing resources. These systems were scaled back when they proved too unpredictable. Files also suggest additional quests were planned for the arena, expanding rivalries and storylines beyond what shipped. Even the landscape carries hints of unfinished ideas, with ruins or caves containing empty chambers meant for scrapped objectives. These remnants fuel speculation, giving Oblivion an aura of mystery even in its design. The modding community expanded Oblivion's legacy further. From bug fixes to massive expansions, mods kept the game alive long after its release. Projects like Oscuro's Oblivion Overhaul and Oblivion Character Overhaul reshaped gameplay and visuals, while total conversions like Narum turned the engine into entirely new games. Obscure mods even restored cut quests, proving that much of Oblivion's lost content still exists in fragments. Culturally, Oblivion left its mark through memes and shared experiences. Lines like, "Stop right there, criminal scum," and the exaggerated persuasion wheel reactions became iconic, spreading far beyond the game itself. These moments, often mocked, gave Oblivion a unique charm that kept it in the public consciousness even as graphics aged. Obscurely, Oblivion also shifted the Elder Scrolls lore in ways still debated. The reimagining of Cyrodiil's jungle into rolling fields, the ambiguous nature of the Oblivion crisis, and the portrayal of Daedric princes all reshaped Tamriel. Later games, like Skyrim, continued these reinterpretations, leaving fans to speculate whether lore changes were retcons or metaphysical shifts within the universe itself. Oblivion's true legacy lies in its balance of ambition and imperfection. It dared to simulate life, to create sprawling stories, to blend myth with mechanics. Its flaws became features, its glitches became legends, and its atmosphere became timeless. For players who journeyed through Cyrodiil, Oblivion was not just a game but a memory of glowing crystals in Ayleid ruins, of guards shouting accusations from nowhere, of quiet forests humming with Jeremy Soul's melodies. Today, Oblivion endures not because it was flawless, but because it was alive. Its obscure details, unfinished dreams, and lingering mysteries ensure that it remains a cornerstone of the Elder Scrolls saga. For those who drift into sleep with its stories, Oblivion is more than nostalgia. It is a reminder that even imperfect worlds can become legends, living on in memory long after the gates have closed.